anyways, so that's open, I think, for about another 2 weeks. That's why we wanted to jump on that now, if you have an opinion. So anyways, we're happy to have Cameron and Lisa join us tonight. And I think Randy was going to say a few words of welcome and launch us. Is that right?
Excellent. Well, yeah, I'm so pleased. We saw the news item about the observatory going from Bill Almond's house out to the Highlands, to Prospect Lake. And being a newbie, I didn't know Bill, and I understand that he is a cherished member of the club, wrote the history of the Victoria Center. And it's so wonderful to have his legacy carried on with such enthusiasm. I phoned Lisa and Cameron, and their enthusiasm is infectious, and I'm really looking forward to this talk. So thank you for agreeing to put it on for us.
All right. I'm just going to set up my screen here.
Yeah, we're excited to be talking about this as well. We've got a few people that we know joining us as well, watching. So you might see some names in there that you're not used to seeing. And so a bit of family. Cameron's dad and mom, I think, are both there, and my sister, and a couple friends, Rob and Carmela. And so, yeah, you might see some different people there.
So can you guys see our screen here? We have that, perfect. So we got, we're sort of going to take you sort of a little bit about the dome, what it took to move it here, and sort of what our plans are in the future. We can stop at any time if you have further questions. There's a little bit of video. I can stop that too as we go, but we're just looking to have this really interactive. And if things pop in your head, do something that we can hear you, or say something in the chat, and we'll go from there. So we'll get started. So as Randy mentioned, this was Bill Almond's dome. And he, let's just get going here. Perfect. All right, so here's his dome. Now I know there's probably quite a few of you who've actually been up inside it. He built it back in 1992. It was 11-foot diameters, 6x6 posts. Fair bit of value in that wood these days. 16-foot high cement brick pier. He had a viewing platform out the back, which was great. And he had once you're up in there, it's about a 20-foot clear view around most of the area. My junior high was actually right in behind it. So we're going to start off first with a video. I know some of you have seen this, but we really wanted to sort of share sort of who Bill was and still is, and what this dome was, and sort of how it came into being. So here's a little video.
The sound might be a little low.
Finally, this evening, Adam introduces us to a call-with man who's created something unexpected on a quiet suburban street on tonight's Sawatsky Signoff.
Bill is sweeping up as he reveals what happened.
I lost everything, actually.
You lost everything?
On the computers, yeah.
Although malware on his computer destroyed years worth of work, he's unconcerned.
I just didn't have pleasure out of redoing something as it would the first time.
What Bill does is what he's been doing since he was a boy during the blackouts of the Second World War.
Because we were getting German bombers coming over, dropping bombs on top of our heads.
When the explosions weren't ripping the night sky apart, Bill noticed how the pinpricks of light that remained flickered with light.
A feeling of awe and savor me all morning.
The beauty that inspired Bill to spend a year to design and construct this.
Yeah, it's unusual. Anyway, do you want to go upstairs and take a look? Yes, please. Okay.
Upstairs to what that boy in Manchester would never have dreamed of ascending.
He'd go, wow, 1 million times, I suppose.
Upstairs that lead to the conservatory that Bill made to be closer to the stars.
Wow.
Inside, a relatively complex crank system opens up the roof. A very simple push spins it around. Once the room is ready, Bill turns to one computer to pilot the telescope.
I just click on the screen and the telescope will automatically just goes to the object that I clicked on.
The second computer captures and processes pictures of what he finds.
So that's just what I took.
The other photos, the ones similar to this poster, are what he lost because of that computer malware, what he's unconcerned about because of how it feels being here.
Feeling of fulfillment, really. That's what it makes you feel like.
That feeling here because of all that Bill sees out there.
It's too beautiful and it's too beautiful, constructed to be something that happened by chance.
Like Bill the boy was once inspired, gazing up from the ruins of World War, Bill the man has found peace, looking up from what he built in his backyard. Adam Sawatsky, CTV News. Call it.
All right, so that's all about the observatory dome. We didn't know that, of course, when our adventure with this dome began. Janet, his wife, has shared some photos with us, and that sort of shows the build that took place. In some of the history that Bill wrote, actually, for the club, he talked about how he had to get it approved by Colwood as a watchtower. He wasn't sure if they would do it or not. Much the same way we had to call Saanich and say, hey, are we allowed to do this? And essentially it's just it's a shed. So there's no problems with that. It was built in 92. Like I said before, I watched it being built out of my grade 10 science class. It was literally out the back window as this was happening. So it's pretty neat that this has come sort of full circle here. He started off with a Meade 10-inch SCTV and then SCT, and then he went into a 12-inch Meade. And we'll see both those telescopes in his photos. First of all, his build. So here we are. This is the pier going up, cinder block pier, concrete down the middle. It was really straight. Having spent a lot of time going up and down those stairs, I really appreciate the craftsmanship that went into just how well built this pier was. You can see it getting higher and higher there. And here, so unbeknownst to me, this dome obviously is custom made. I thought it was a kit at first when I first heard about it. So seeing these photos here has really helped us work and figure out what's happening as we restore it and bring it back to what it should be. Even like some of these wheels, these aren't the original wheels that he was, or these are the original wheels. These aren't the wheels that are in there now, although there is one that still lingers in there, and I'm not 100% sure why it's still there, but we'll figure that out. You can see the craftsmanship that went into this. It's thin plywood and then it's fiberglassed over top. This photo here is interesting because you can see how the pier in the background, how he finished it at the top. It was a 12-inch circular pier with 4 rods of rebar in it that I became very familiar with. And yeah, it's there's a lot of concrete up there. So here we are. From this photo, Dunsmuir Schools is right behind you. And they ended up lifting it from this position up onto the pier, and they slid it. I wasn't sure if they poured that concrete, the very top 12-inch piece, after they lifted it or before. But once we saw those photos, we realized how they did it. And there it is. There's Bill with his wife, Janet, with the dome all finished.
Yeah, so we just have a few photos afterwards. This is kind of what you would have seen from the street view if you had Google Maps back in the 90s. This is kind of what you would have seen or just walked by. And this is his original, the first telescope he had in it, the Schmidt-Cassegrain. And so this photo would have been from the 90s. It's just another angle of it here with some of the different books and things he had set up in there. He has all sorts of little shelves, and he has even a little chair that comes down. You flip it down and you can flip it back up. He's got all these little pieces, a little shelf that, or a little nook that holds like a magazine rack almost. You can put things in. This one here is his second telescope. And so you can tell he's changed his setup as the years went on. And actually that center pier that was round, the bigger telescope, it needed a larger pier. So he built big square one that you can see that Cameron's got the mouse on right there. And then that's one of his great granddaughters that's with him in that picture. He has his children, his grandchildren, and he has several great grandchildren. And some of them we saw, and you'll see in the other pictures of our move here as well. So they loved going up there. They one of the great granddaughters was at the move, and her mom was saying how she was sad a bit that it was leaving because it was her great grandpa's dome and all the things. But then her mom was explaining how it wasn't being used there anymore, and so then it can go to someone that can use it. So then she was okay with that. She was just happy that someone was using it. So it's a nice little setup, really nice setup that he's got right there.
Yeah, so that wooden square you see underneath the telescope there, at this point, that is now all solid concrete, and that is actually on top of the floor, which couldn't be there when it came time to actually move the scope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was Bill's dome. So why we're here today. So this all started, and I saw that Sid was in the chat. How funny things happen. Sid fired out an email back in October. Summer's over and things are slowing down COVID wise, and basically tosses out there. There's the dome. There's a dome out there. If someone wants it, it's 9 feet. Well, Sid's a liar. It's 11 feet. Which when you're applying for width permits for wide loads does make a difference. But Bill was smart. You do your grade 8 math, and you figure that's again, to make Saanich happy, that's under 100 square feet. So we're all good to go for putting it on the property. The question is how do we get it here? So my answer to Sid's email was this: thanks, and I gave Janet a call. Now remember, we did not know anything about how this was built, what it was. We've been looking at domes sort of jokingly, there's sky pods and next domes and things like that. And honestly, I thought I would just sort of show up with my truck and a wrench and a screwdriver and just take it apart panel by panel and put it in the back and drive it home in an afternoon. So, but we did our research first. We jumped into Google Earth, and you can see here. So this is, if you can see my mouse, this is the dome right here on Ben Homer. My grade 10 science class was right here. So we watched it all happen. But what has changed is when Bill lifted it, he had the crane back here. And this was the teacher's parking lot. There was lots of room. This hedge was a lot smaller. And Dunsmuir didn't have portables at the time. There's now a 3-phase wire line going across the back, very similar to I think it might be single phase across the front. So in the dome, as you can see, is exactly almost in the middle of his property. So the route to get it out was not going to be the same way that it was when it was lifted in. We probably could have got access to the parking lot there, but just we talked to 3 different crane operators, and none of them were really that interested until we came across Matt and with Vic Crane, and he went and had a look at it. Everyone was interested. Everyone wanted to take a look at it, but they weren't really sure how to solve the power line problem. So further research brought us into Google Street View again. So it looked like a dome. Still couldn't tell from here, if it was a custom build or a kit or anything like that. But it was intriguing enough. And Janet was lovely on the phone, so I couldn't say no to that. As you see here, wait, this wasn't a kit. And if you want to talk about these frames.
Yeah. So then I knew that Cameron was looking and talking to her about it, but then I didn't know that Cameron went and visited it one day when I was at work, and he went up the top there, and Bill showed him the telescope, and Janet as well, and the whole setup. And Cameron's inspecting it a little bit, goes up, and then he comes home and he's like, we need to get a way to get this dome here. It's really, really cool. And it's all custom made and it's pretty amazing. And so he's really excited. So he convinces me to come and look at it. I'm like, I don't really know how we're going to get this to work. I don't understand how we're going to get the crane, and it's going to cost so much and all this stuff. So anyways, I come and look, and I didn't really imagine how big it was either. So, I go up into it, and it is pretty cool inside.
Yeah.
And so the pictures don't really do it justice in there. It's kind of really neat.
The shutter had been off it for at least, when I first saw it, the shutter was already off, and it went through the winter with the shutter off. And I know Rob's in the chat here, who's been helping me so much and giving us so much time, just trying to figure out the pulley system, how it was working. You can see the iterations that Bill went through as he probably changed things. It's sometimes hard to tell what's original, what's not. But we're working to sort of bring it back, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. So a lot of what he had there was working. So yeah, you can see the shutters off in this photo because it was actually tossed over the back. But yeah, these photos are really handy.
How are those curved supports made?
The arch is coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all plywood. It's almost like a boat. It's thin. I don't know if it's like 1/4 inch or 3/8 like plywood, and then it's fiberglass right over top.
I guess he would have cut them, just custom cut them.
Yeah, there's we can go back and I can show you a photo of it's ribs, and then he sheeted it and then just fiberglass right over top. It's essentially two pieces now. He did one half. He sort of did the two halves of the clamshell and then built the shutter feature up the middle. It sort of joined the two together. That's actually quite a common flaw on some of the larger plastic and fiberglass domes is the amount of flexure that happens with that shutter. The shutter ends up zipping them closed, almost like there's a lot of expansion, but this thing's pretty tight. I think Lisa caught this moment of me when it was starting to get realizing what exactly was going to be involved in actually having to move this. It was not just going to be a couple of screwdrivers and a couple of trips in the back of my truck, that's for sure. So to prepare for it, first, we had to take the back deck off. There's a little bit of rotten back there. There was some wiring that was going up inside, and we had to remove that and make that safe. And then had to do a lot of jackhammering. It's weird when you get involved with projects like this, when things are going quickly and you're just sort of, going there every day after work and hitting things, you forget to take pictures. So there are some of the before pictures I don't have, but a large, probably 1 meter by 1 meter, I guess a yard of concrete went out that little door out onto the lawn down below. And that is actually, the entrance there is our new entrance that we use here on our property, because we are not up on stilts like Bill was. You can see a little bit where the moisture, actually in this photo here, where the moisture came in over, as I'm pointing at the screen, over in the corner here. So there's, we had to rip the carpet out as well, just to sort of help dry it out. And then, over the winter, we were digging holes and laying things out and measuring and doing a lot of that YouTube research that happens and trying to figure out how deep holes should be and how many yards of concrete, and do you want it to act like a pendulum? Do you want a steel pier? Do you want a concrete pier? All that kind of stuff. We used Lisa as the measuring stick. So we had 5 holes. The plan was originally we were actually going to use wood and have it on a small little still, but then we just decided to use concrete. We're there pouring concrete, we might as well use all the piers as concrete. So it's 8-inch sonotubes around the edge, and then it's going to be a 16-inch pier coming up through the middle. And there we got some of the bar in. This is after the first pour. And there we are. Got some trenching in place, getting ready for some conduit, just for running the wires and keeping them isolated down through the ground. Yeah, and so the move. So this next little bit we have is a video. It's about 7 minutes long, and it's a sort of a collection of some stills and screenshots and video taken from several people who sent it all into us. So it tells a pretty good story. It took 4 different moves. The first move was to actually lift it off the house. Sorry, the first move was to get it up off the house. The second move, and then onto the trailer. We then had to drive it out from the house onto the street, because the crane truck was too high for us to get a permit for. So we had to transfer it off that truck onto a second lower truck. And then from that truck, we then drove it all the way to the house, and then we had to lift it off the truck, and then we had to reposition the crane and then do a second lift. So 2 lifts at each site. And here we go. So the red circle is where it's going to go, and there's the street down the side of our house. This was a neighbor who had a low bed truck that a friend put me in touch with and said, you might want to talk to him. I knew as long as we were about 32 inches, we'd be close. And so 13.8 is how you can't be taller than that. So here's the truck in place. We're ready to go with the dome in the background. Optimus Prime shows up, and it's a big HIAB off the back. And we cut the last connections. We left a few little wires done up and nails overnight so it wouldn't blow off. And the truck's going to roll in here.
That's some of Bill's family, and there's me, and yeah. So they had some different people that joined us to watch, and they were excited about that. I think it was bittersweet a little bit.
This is the video's at 2 times speed just to have things go a little bit quicker. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
You guys still here? Okay. You'll notice the crane is right up against the deck. There's about 3 inches here and about 4 inches between the power line. So we were actually going to lift off here, and then where the crane's coming down now, put it on the deck over top of the wires, then put the crane back and then drive it out. So we have to go up and around several times. We also had to secure it quite high above the dome, because if we were attached too close to the roof, we would have crushed it. So we had to make sure our capture point was quite high. So the straps held it carefully, but they didn't crush it. Janet got a free tree pruning service done. There was a tree in her driveway that needed some attention, so we gave it some TLC before we came as well.
It was a little bit frightening to see the pressure on the bottom of the fiberglass when it was lifting. That was a little bit frightening.
So there you can see the crane's actually up over the power line there. And so from this position, we then drove it out onto the street.
Yeah.
And then now we have to offload onto the lower truck. And you'll see the difference in height. If we could have just taken it in that truck, it would have been great, but we couldn't do it.
Was that because of power line clearance?
No, so over width isn't a big deal to get a permit. It's $15 for a 30-day permit. Who knew? I'd never got an oversized permit before. But they really start caring about height, and they care about weight. We knew we wouldn't have an issue with weight, but height 13.8. We are, if the shutter had been on, it would have been really, really close for overall height. Cement trucks, where you see the wheels mounted up high, they're about 13.6, so you don't want to be any higher than that. And this was a passerby caught this photo, and it got put in the Victoria News. So here we are, we just drove it down the road slowly around the corner. Then we had more room. We were off the transit route. We strapped it all down, put the signs on, flagged it. There's my old junior high. And there's my truck, my little fancy light bar on the top flashing to say, look out, look out, look out. And then here we are at our house. We backed it down. We have to lift it off here and then reposition the crane. So this lift here is coming off the flat deck, and we're just going to put it down in the yard. Again, here, though, we have power lines that we had to work around. Yeah, this Matt and his crane was just, he was amazing. And this crane was just absolutely incredible. There's a funny part in this video. Our tenant who lives upstairs, she knew that this was happening at some point, but I don't think she quite understood what was going to be happening. And you'll see her poke her head out and sort of question, oh, is it happening soon? And there's this giant dome floating right outside her, her living room. Oh, here she comes. So after he puts it down, he's going to back his crane right up against this fence here. And he's actually going to poke up underneath these wires that you see right here. it looks scary when it's at 2 times speed. You could tell the side that I'm standing on there was the north side. It was really interesting seeing just how much more. They always say you can tell where you are in the forest by which side has the moss on the trees. And the dome was a little bit like that too. So now we've got it down. We repositioned the straps because where we were lifting before was the exact location of where we had the piers set up, the pilings. We got Sansom straps that are hilted down into the into those concrete posts there. If you listen carefully, you can hear his crane beeping. It's because he got to 95% of the limit of his crane. He told us he can do 7,500 pounds at 75 feet extended. And I asked him, I said, are we going to be okay? And he's like, well, I just have to watch my gauges really close. But I think it was a little bit closer than he let on. You can see us actually kind of having to push it over to get it to go. But we'd recreated the exact dimensions of the base when we framed it. So we knew that technically it should fit absolutely perfectly.
And what I didn't know, but the guy that's standing right in front there, that is the crane operator. I didn't even know they had these packages that they could just bring that over. I thought he'd have to sit in the crane. All this, I've never worked with these before, but that's the guy. He's got his little portable pack and he's moving the crane where it needs to be, the guy dressed in black.
Yeah, it was really nice. He's just standing there like, what do you need? 1 inch, quarter inch, forward, backwards. He had so much control over that. It was incredible. And just like that, we had a dome in our front yard. So there it sits looking at it from the other view. And there's me pretty happy about what was a pretty stressful day. And then the article came out in the Victoria News about the dome.
I think
moving.
it's the one that maybe Randy saw.
I think, yeah, it probably was.
Yeah, we all saw it. That was
Yeah.
good. For what it's worth, when
Congratulations.
we moved the George Ball dome. The crane operator was getting beeps then too, as Sid will attest.
Yeah, I looked. There was some nice photos of that move. It was that was really neat to see that one. And we actually contacted that same company, and anyone who had the boom cranes, they couldn't do it. It had to be a HIAB. It had to be able to articulate and turn. We use a crane operator at the garden, which I work at Butcher Gardens out there. We use one all the time, and he's like, I know exactly the machine you're looking for. And he goes, there's only a couple on the west coast of British Columbia, and luckily we found a time that worked for us. One thing that was interesting, I'll share it here, is 5 minutes before that crane showed up at the site, I got a phone call from the CEO of where I work at the Butcher Gardens, and we actually had a COVID exposure scare. And I'm the health and safety manager there. So literally I have a crane on arrival. It's due any minute. And I was having to do conference calls. Luckily it turned out to be nothing, but it was a stressful day. Yeah, so that's the move. Going on to talk a little about our new home. And it's funny that you guys were talking about streetlights. I wanted to sort of show where we are in relation to the DAO and the Plaskett. And I thought, wait a minute, I already have a map that shows this, because shortly after we got the dome, Saanich had hired some contractors. And they went through and they cleared all the lines around the power lines. They also upgraded or changed or renewed some of our streetlights. And you can see over on the right here, here's the DAO, here's our club scope up over here. We're down here against where it says streetlights. I actually sent this map to Saanich with some photos of the streetlights and said, we're aware we're within the 5 kilometer zone. We know that Schedule B of bylaw 8220 or whatever it is has some very specific rules. I'm not sure if these lights comply or not, but we'd be very interested if there's some sort of shields or something you can do to lessen the light invasion onto where we're observing. So this is a close-up of where we are. You can see the 2 streetlights where they are, and Saanich within the week came out and put shields up on the lights. It was fantastic. It turns out one of the guys was over at a friend's house the other night having a beer, and he was talking about how he put up some shades for some guy, and it turns out it was me. So you can sort of see where we do most of our observing. It's down what we call the front. Yeah.
Yeah, so then.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so then there's our view of the DAO. You can look at it through our telescope. We did that the other night, actually on Saturday night. And then we saw David up there. We knew he was up there for the virtual star party on Saturday. And so then we sent him these pictures and said, hey, we see you. And so he sent us a picture back of us. This is from David's camera back down to our spot. So that was kind of fun. So then, yeah, this is our friend Rob. He's been helping Cameron, as Cameron mentioned, just kind of getting the pulleys back up. He's been working a lot with us and getting this all ready for us to use it. And so now I guess is what we want to do with the telescope. We want to be able to use the equipment that we have. We have a setup for my dad, and he had a pier set up. Not a dome, but just a pier out in North Carolina. He had a dark sky site where him and my mom made a little garage, and they had a little camper out there, and they would come and visit it. And so this is his setup that he had. He had made this out in North Carolina. And so we have this set up now, and well, not all of it, but a lot of it. And so we're going to set up something similar. The electrical goes into our, once that's all set up into the dome, and we're going to have the pier set up. Cameron will organize that. So we want to learn some photography, because as you can see, we have a lot to learn. This is actually just taken with an iPhone through one of our telescopes, so we haven't done much. So yeah, we just have a few pictures that we've done. We have a DSLR, and we've just done a few photos. Like we did the one, what was that, January 2020, I think.
Yeah.
And then NeoWise. So we've only done a little bit. We haven't learned processing yet. We haven't processed really the photos. So we need to learn that section as well. So we've already talked to some, in the last couple of years, a few of you guys about our setup. And so I think a few guys know that, and that we're still going to get that, a lot to learn.
January 2020, does anyone even remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels like a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That seems like forever ago.
Yeah, so we set it up a couple weeks ago. It's on its tripod right now because the hole is just like, I dropped my sunglasses down that hole the other day, and I'm sure it'll lose a few things until we get that all set up. But we've got our telescope set up there. We just did some visual observing. We're just playing around. We're going to try and set up the system for the auto guiding. Right now we have an Orion star shoot, but we don't have it set up on the side scope for that, and might look at some other options there as well. Like off-axis guiding in the future. So there's a lot that we have to learn to use that to, Bill has obviously done a lot of different photography, and he knows a lot about the different processing and everything that's involved. And so we'll have to learn all that stuff too.
Cameron and Lisa, did you get your dad's pier, or are you going to have to buy another pier?
We have the plate.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just have to put the bolts into the concrete to
we don't have the bolt
to secure it. So
okay.
Yeah, it's the actual Los Vandy plate. So there's a lot of forgiveness there too. So even if the concrete pour isn't perfect and the bolts aren't perfect, there's still a lot of adjustment we have. One of the choices for our location, there's sort of 3 spots in the yard that would be the most effective. The best would actually be right down against the water because it gives us the biggest field of view. However, we sort of decided that's probably not the best place to enjoy. We're very fortunate to where we live. And there's another spot up in the back, but there was just a little bit more trees in the area. It was closer to the streetlights. This spot we liked, because we can see the North Star, which really helps. And there's only a few spots in our yard where we can actually see it. And also we can see the plaskett from there. And we thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, we're not nerds, but we enjoy the science. We enjoy science fiction and stuff. This is actually some of our wedding photos. So we like to have fun where it's not all seriousness. And yeah, so this is where the garden's filled out a little bit since this photo was taken. That was actually one of those mornings. It was quite cold and there was moisture on the dome. And the reason I took the photo, and unfortunately the photo doesn't show it, but the dome looked like it was covered in crystals. It was just like it was bedazzled in diamonds, and it was incredible. So we just want to say that's the presentation. Thank you very much. And if you guys have any questions, we got some other photos too. If some people were asking questions about Lisa's dad at one point, and happy to talk about that and what his journey in astronomy was. And we want to go back in the slides. I can pull up some of those shots of where the wood construction.
As far as attaching your mount and telescope to the pier, have you looked at Victoria Center's setup?
The one up on the hill?
Yeah, or the VCO, yeah.
Yeah, not with that lens.
What I was wondering was if have you looked at the design, because we're using a plate and then put the scope and the mount and the scope on top of a plate.
Okay.
So we have a steel plate on top of the concrete pier. So that allows you a lot more adjustments. So you might want to have a look at our Zenfolio website and see some of those details.
It's not I was going to say, yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I don't have a super high res. This so is it out of the concrete? Is it like there's a few vertical bolts and those sort of like what they call the rat trap, and then the plates on top, and then the dome bolts on top of that?
Yeah, it's too bad Bruno's not here, but maybe Sid would remember. I think there's 4 bolts, isn't there?
Okay,
Sid?
yeah.
There are four bolts there. Yeah, that should work. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have that exact same plate that he has. That's Lisa's
my
dad.
Yeah.
Okay. That exact same plate. So we'll be doing something really similar.
Yeah, so you're all set then. Good.
Yeah, that should work.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No, just a couple of comments. I certainly have some appreciation for your difficulties in getting the crane to operate over that power line. Yeah. And getting your permits for the height and whatnot.
Yeah.
When the Edmonton Club first was looking at the 18-foot dome that the university had west of the city, we discarded it because there was a 25 kV line that ran right next to the dome, and we didn't think we could get anybody with a tall enough crane to lift the dome over the line.
Yeah.
Turns out they decommissioned that whole site, so the 25 kV line wasn't there when we finally acquired the dome.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
But getting an 18-foot dome from the west side of the city to about 20 kilometers on the east side of the city without having to go under overpasses or through very narrow spots was a challenge.
Yeah, that probably you would have had more permits than us for sure. We only had to get one, which was for like the first width rule. If we were a little bit wider, then there's a second one, and then you have to start adding, what do you call like spotter cars out in front and stuff like that. And we were lucky. Saanich didn't really know what to do when we called them. They knew what to do about the dome in general, but actually being on the road, they were a little bit confused with what to do. But when you go through all the regulations, really, if you have the size, if you have the width and the height permit, all they care about is weight. Like, if you got the provincial permit, you're fine.
Around Edmonton's a little different there. You're moving a lot of big oil field equipment around.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that difficult.
This when I was driving down Prospect, there's 2 power lines, and things you never look at when you're just driving normally. But all of a sudden, the guy who had the low bed, he actually lives around the corner, and he said, you got to go check out these 2 power lines and have your long 2x4 ready. It'd all be the low voltage stuff. But as he was behind me as we were coming out, I had to basically at the crest of each hill just block the entire road, and people were like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Until all of a sudden this dome sort of came over the crest, and then they're like, "Oh, we get it," and then they'd all pull over, and then you go on to the next hill. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd be more terrified taking this down Prospect Lake Road or taking it down one of the Edmonton highways. I think both have their both have their risks.
Yeah.
You guys are great. So the thing that occurs to me about this is you probably said to yourselves ahead of the whole thing, how hard could it be, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, well, it's...
I think Cameron was more positive like that, and I was kind of skeptical. I was kind of like, I don't think that we can do it.
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go.
That was me. He was definitely more positive. I think.
There just wasn't a lot of, like, I really appreciate, like, like, once I realized this thing was hand built, and like this was someone's baby, and they loved it, and it would just crush me to see what would have probably happened to this if we hadn't taken it. You know, we have a little bit of energy, and we had the space, and we have some equipment, and it just seemed, especially from the astrophotography point of view, just with the setup that it takes when you're putting all that together, just to have somewhere. You know, Rob's probably shaking his head as I talk to this because I keep using the word automation all the time. And Rob's just like, well, you know, you'll get there. We'll see. Just, yeah, to be able to go in and when we do have it set up and just, you know, turn things on and just check your alignment and just start going. And then discovering actually with the SIGs, the EAA, stumbling across that with David is just fantastic because we actually have a Daub that Lisa's dad built. This is it disassembled, and then I think I have a picture of Lisa using it. Or here's her dad. So we have this 12.5-inch Daub, which it's a beautiful instrument to look through, and it's great for visual stuff. And the EAA, I mentioned it the other night. It gives us an opportunity to really sort of bridge the gap. So when people come over and they want to go in the dome and they want to see something, and it's like, well, okay, but it won't look as good as it does, you know, through this Daub. But when you can start bringing in some of the computer aids, it helps keep people interested.
It's always good to manage people's expectations about this. They're expecting to see NASA photographs.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, you know, like, well, here, can you show me this? And they hold up their phone. And you're like, nope, I can show you where that is, but I can't show you that. And especially when you recognize the Hubble palette and you're like, oh no, like, yeah.
There's a very
so you mentioned that the shutter was gone. So did you have to rebuild it, or did you have to make a new one?
No. So the shutter, parts of it I would say are gone. There's a lot of dry rot. There's some pretty spongy pieces. So let's see if I can find a good shot of it here.
It was just taken off, but it was set to the side, so it was all still there.
Bill had started repairing it, and I think that might have helped, maybe what spurred the decision to maybe start looking for another home. So you can actually see up in the corner here, the cable is going up over the top, and that's because the shutter in this photo is dangling off the side and is partially supported by the deck that Bill had out the back. There's the way the shutter rolls, there's two, I think it's EMT, two tubes that run down parallel either side. And there's 4 pulleys, one on each, or wheels basically on each corner. But the wheels were starting, like, because the rot was there, the wheels were starting to tip up, and they were fairly small brackets. So I don't have any photos here of some of the work that Rob's done, but you know, we have Rob's machines, stainless steel. There's plates with stainless steel rods, Delron bushings. The thing just moved. It just, like, there's our problem will be this thing wants to slide down the back so fast that we have to be very careful with the hand crank. Like it's running really smooth. And we're going to be redoing the hand crank down here with just a same idea, but just a slightly, I guess, a small improvement over what Bill was able to do there. Some new pulleys. We're going to add a couple more pulleys just to help spread the load out a little bit more. But no, the shutter was there. We brought it inside the dome. Actually, you can see it here. This is after I brought you can see it lying on its side in here. We brought it inside, and it was inside for the move.
We have a very good astrophotography special interest group as well as the EAA.
Yeah,
so welcome to join that.
Yeah, I've seen your work. Gary. Yeah, and I've definitely I've seen pictures of down in Arizona there. They you're on my hit list for sure.
Okay, great. Oh,
Yeah.
happy to help. We
Yeah.
have a lot of people that are good at it.
Yeah, we have a lot of great astrophotographers in this club,
Yeah.
for sure.
Better than me by far.
Yeah, there's I can just look at the names on the screen
Yeah,
here. There's
quite a few of them here tonight.
there's a lot
Yeah.
of lot of talent in this room. Yeah.
Do you have a particular interest? Are you deep space, planetary, nebula, galaxy? What's your hopes and aspirations?
It's funny, Lisa and I'd say we're a little bit different in what we.
Yeah, I think I still prefer visual observing maybe a little bit more. I like the photography point too, but it's a lot, and so I think I'll be involved in that as well. I like the nebulas and galaxies more. I think Cameron has a little more interest in the planetary. Planetary is great too, but I think that he wants to get a little bit of that as well. We don't have a camera that's maybe well suited to that, but maybe we will eventually.
We have we're fortunate, and like her dad was quite well set up for astrophotography, like for deep sky. I think he had a planetary camera because we have the filter wheel and filters for it. But after he passed away, a lot of the gear you see in this photo was actually on consignment in Seattle. And we talked with Lisa's mom, and we made a decision that we just couldn't let it all go. So we brought it back. And so we have a monochrome CCD for the main scope. But we have a guide scope. We have what we need. But to do planetary, where you kind of want to shoot the video, we don't have that.
Yeah, so I think that we might each have our own goal.
That's easy to add, Cameron and Lisa.
Yeah, it's sort of.
It might be a bit of a mix of things. So I think the galaxies will probably, and the nebula will probably be something we'll start with.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Lisa, for you, I think we're going to start another SIG called Human Assisted Astronomy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Lisa's hardcore. Like it'll be she's pretty good. Her and Diane really got along really well.
But I didn't know. I'm still learning visual observing. So.
Yeah, but her and Diane, they're both similar journeys into astronomy, with their dads both being major figures and stuff. And this was us, I think, at I don't know what was this a start. This wasn't a start party.
No, well, it was one of the nights that we all went up and set up in front. And I think it was a Plaskett night, and then people were in the Plaskett, and some people were out here on the deck. This was one of the events, and there was still snow.
That's your dad's job, right?
That's my dad's job.
Yeah. He went down to Salem for the eclipse, actually. And this is him.
Yeah, so some of you might have seen him there, maybe.
Where he was in Salem?
Yeah, at the university. There was a university there.
Yeah, I was in Corvallis, but passed by Salem for sure.
Yeah.
And my old optics professor was one of the speakers there. And
who is that?
Dr. Oh no, what's his name? If anybody knows, he's like he searches for solar eclipses, and he goes to a whole lot of them, and he's
was it Ralph? Ralph?
Yeah, it's Ralph Chu.
Okay.
I blanked on his name, but it's Ralph Chu.
Of course.
So he was my professor in school, because I'm an optometrist. So he was my optics professor. He's retired now, but he was at Salem as well. So my parents met him, and we're talking about my time in school. So my dad did this photo, a time-lapse photo.
Yes. So, and then we actually, after he passed away, we took this photo, that one I just had there, and we had it etched on a plaque. And then this plaque is mounted on that Dodd that he built now. So it's a pretty cool instrument, and the plaque worked out really well. Like it's pretty nice. So we're really happy how, not about his passing, but just how this is sort of all worked out now. Yeah. What other questions we got?
Chris, can I share the screen for a minute?
Yeah, let me get out.
Sure, if Cameron is stop sharing, yeah.
Yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
out.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I just like to say it's an absolutely joyous story, and thank you so much, Lisa and Cameron. I'm showing a picture here, and I just wonder if you can see this. Can anybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's Vic City Crane. And he was involved in a project that I was working at my condo, and Matt came out. So I know the skills of Matt, and I just thought I'd let you see in another sequence. The one thing we have here, my hand are on things called outriggers. And this is something to consider. Matt used as nomograms in the job that we had. These would put a downward pressure of 45 tons, which was sufficient to pop holes through our underground garage. So we use the crane the way we wanted. But I'm just going to stop share and show you another picture, if I can.
So we were very fortunate. Janet had a very conveniently located drain. There was one spot when we were going over the house that we had to get one of those outriggers out, and there was a place about this wide, and we just happened to be able to make it work. And yeah, it was wow. There you go. Yeah, look at that.
So what we have here is the crane extended. It had to lift something up that we couldn't use a forklift for a variety of reasons. And it was lifting equipment onto a roof garden that we were removing. And this turned out to be a mega project, but this thing was bouncing up and down. It was on the absolute limit of the crane's capacity, and it was bouncing up and down like a yo-yo. But I just say that it brought back memories. Maybe it was kind of like PTSD I've got experience with your show there, but absolutely loved it. And thanks so much, and congratulations.
Wow, pretty impressive, all right.
So are there any more questions?
I would like to know if anybody can tell us more about Bill Almond.
What
was his
I
interest?
can tell you a little bit about him. Other people probably know more than I do, but Bill was an amazing guy, a really nice fellow. He did this wonderful history of the club, and we sort of featured that at the time the RASC met, the Canadian Center met here. The other thing that I just want to say about him is that he probably had the effect of ensuring that we had success at the VCO, because when we were sitting around at Astronomy Cafe talking about it, and we were talking about telescopes and we were talking about mounts, he made the very wise comment that you want to make sure you spend whatever it takes to get a really good mount, because you can always change the scopes afterwards. And that was what caused us to get the Paramount, which was a fairly new mount at the time, and it seemed like it was kind of almost out of reach for cost, but we did it. So I have really good memories of Bill. Just a nice person too to talk to. And he was very gracious about inviting people up to his observatory to show you things.
One of
yes, as far as the the reminiscence of Bill is, I think for me, is that he actually hosted the astrophotography SIG, which it wasn't called a SIG at the time, it was just the astrophotography group, and brought me along. So at that point, I managed to pick up enough knowledge and subsequently bring other people along. So that's how it works in the club.
Could I add that Bill was a former president of the Victoria Center, and he arranged one of the general assemblies that was held out at Pearson, and he was the 2003 Newton Ball Award winner.
Yeah, Bill goes quite a ways back. I mean, if for the people in the center that remember Jack Newton, we're kind of in the same time period with Jack and also with Sandy Barta that at the time when I was president. So that was a while ago. But yeah, we all have fond memories of Bill, and Bill and Jack were really at the forefront of CCD astrophotography at the time. So they could only imagine what we do now, but they were right at the beginning.
Thank you.
I notice your place is on the water. You know, I bet you if you had a barbecue and a star party to follow, it'd be pretty popular, you know.
We have talked about that many times.
Gets thrown off by COVID restrictions, but
Yeah.
one of these days we will.
Actually, one of the other decisions where we placed it is when we're up the hill, we have those great sort of views to the west and maybe a little bit to the north. Well, not too much to the north, but mostly to the west. Where we have it here, we actually have a good shot at the east and the south. So we kind of have some options depending what we're looking for at what time of year. Parking's a bit of a problem, but we have a workaround for that. So, when that time comes, we'll share what that workaround is. But yeah, I know we could definitely. I don't know if we could host a full overnight star party, but we could probably put some nice evenings in.
There you go.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, you guys are inspiring, and it is just such a pleasure to see a project like this among our community.
What's the refractor I saw in there? What's the scope that's in there in your dome?
Yeah, it's well, we got two. The main one that we'll do for the photography, it's a 120 Skywatcher triple APO. So it's a pretty nice piece of equipment. It's on a Losmandy Titan 50 mount. So it'll do, I think, about 100 kilograms, I think, of payload. I was gonna say pull it up. Yeah, so here's
No, I can't see your screen.
Oh yes.
Or
Yeah,
can you?
I don't know. You guys can't see my screen. The longer scope we actually just picked up a couple of days ago. That's it's actually a Tasco 10K. It's like a 1970s old sort. It's almost vintage now, I guess you would call it. Although it's the decade I was born in. But we're back when people used to use long focal lengths for the guiding, we figured because we don't have a guide scope that'll at least get us through to start with. And we just did the very famous plumbing upgrade where I went to Home Depot on the weekend and got the 1.25 diameter chrome piece and took out the old one because this scope came with 0.9665 eyepieces. So Home Depot supplied the adapter and nice little friction fit on the plumbing on the sink adapter, and so we can use that for a little bit for visual too. And then I bought some like $15 carbon wrap and just carbon wrap the outside just so it matched the other scope because it has to look good too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't look stock, Cameron. It looked like you had done some mod to it.
Yeah. So yeah. So I just $15 of carbon fiber wrap and it can just to dress it up a bit.
Yeah, Bill, it's 840 millimeters in focal length.
Yeah, we have a SBIG 8300 for the CCD. So, and it's got the filter wheel and everything too. So, as I was saying to David the other night, it's not the equipment will not be the limiting factor for us. It will be our skill and our patience and your abilities to teach us all will be the limiting factor of that. So, I'm very jealous of how Brock is able to pull down images that quickly and slew to new positions in that. And so that's sort of the game that we want to get into, maybe near the end of the summer. By the time we still have a little bit more work to do on the dome, but I haven't even booked the concrete pour yet, but it'll come.
You're in a good community. You're welcome here.
Well, thanks again.